Hello, kitchen table friends. I am here today with my young friend Devon Waldo and his amazing mom, Laura, who is a longtime friend and colleague. And Devon recently went through Hurricane Helene, and he's agreed to come on and share about his experiences in terms of what he went through and some of the things that he did before he got to where the hurricane was, in terms of a living situation, just to share with us some of the things that are helpful when it comes to emergency preparedness. Hey guys, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Mira.
Thank you.
And so, Devon, I would love if you're comfortable sharing where were you when Hurricane Helene hit?
Yeah, so I am a senior at Appalachian State University in Boone, North Carolina. And so I was in my apartment off campus at the time, and I was well aware that Helene was making her way through Florida and would ultimately reach the Western North Carolina mountains. But they were initially projecting like almost a foot of rain, but it ultimately ended up being more than that. And so I knew that I needed to hunker down and do all the necessary pre-planning and that all that stuff. But in the end, it turned out that it was a little bit worse than that. So
Mhm. And I will say, I think this storm caught a lot of people by surprise because nobody expected that much of an impact that high up the mountain. Most people think if you're on a mountain, you're safe. And as this
yeah.
story taught us, that's not always the case. I love that you talked about thinking about what you needed to do to prepare. We were talking just before we hopped on to actually record. One of the things that makes me very sad is how many people panic in a situation like this and they go to the grocery store, they buy everything, whether they need it or not, including things that if your power goes out, if you have to bug out, if whatever, like maybe it's not a good choice, or they're buying things that are not a nourishing choice for them. Can you talk a little bit about how you came to know, because you're a senior in college, how did you know what you needed to do in order to at least begin preparations for something like this?
Yeah, so I had a lot of shelf-stable foods on hand, some of them being wild-caught tuna, salmon, sardines, beef sticks. I also had stable bone broth, crackers, sunflower butter cups, produce, nuts, seeds, packets of beans, almond milk, and of course, water from my water pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the things that we did as parents to make sure that he always had clean water was to get a good filtration water pitcher for him.
Mm-hmm.
So he knows to do that, to keep that filled, to chill the water in his refrigerator so he can keep that going. And of course, buying 3 or 4 extra filters and lots of nutrient dense shelf stable packet food.
Mm-hmm.
So packets of tuna. So you don't need to say, oh, now I have to bring my can opener with me. So all of these things are nutrient dense and ready to go and throw in your get it out of here bag.
Mm-hmm.
And of course,
And
a little chocolate sun buttercup won't
I
hurt.
was just about to say, I love that you included a little treat because I think sometimes if people are thinking about preparedness, they think about hopefully the foundations. We need to make sure we have protein. We want to make sure that we have some produce, and there's a number of different ways to do that. We also want to have some treats because let's face it, when there's stuff going on, it's emotionally soothing and just a good idea. I'm not saying you should stock up on it, like, don't, that's not your whole pantry, but to have a little bit of something that's comforting is a good thing. So I love that you did that. And, one of the other things that we talked about before we hopped on was how, Devon, you grew up in a mountain environment where you regularly had things that cut you off from civilization. You lost power, lost connection, communication. Can you talk about how that helped you be in a more preparedness mindset for what happened when you were at school?
Yeah, like you said, I was definitely prepared that pretty much all the utilities would go out, but at the same time, the university did have Wi-Fi and power and all that. And so I managed to go there frequently in order to access their internet, just so I would be able to communicate with the outside world and get information.
Mhm.
Now, we also did have his items charged
Yeah,
in
my phone,
advance.
my laptop,
His
all that.
laptop and phone were charged. We did make a mistake. We
Oh,
didn't
no,
have extra
and that's
charging
great.
blocks.
Okay.
So, big epic fail for mom and dad, but we've
Oh,
rectified that. And so we've got extra charging blocks and an emergency alert radio
mhm.
with a crank on the way. We've always kept that on the mountain, so we didn't really think in advance. So that was our little epic fail there. So that is a little gift for Devon to take back to school.
And I'm going to ask you for a gentle reframe. I don't consider that a failure. I frequently talk about the fact that preparedness is a journey. What
Yep.
my family has been through is a number of hurricanes, being close to a wildfire. I mean, we could smell the smoke and see the smoke, but it didn't come close enough that we had to leave. Being cut off in blizzards, all that kind of stuff. Like, we
Yeah.
do that. But every situation is different. And so it's a learning experience. You were taking care of the primary things, which was water, most important, food, and shelter. And then we do something called an after action report, where we sit down and we go, okay, what didn't work? And clearly for your family, the power blocks and the ability to have a crank radio for communication was something that needed to be added. So you can add that, because one of the other things, I also am not a fan of telling people that they need to go out and spend, $5,000 to outfit everything. You do a little bit at a time as you can afford to do it. So I really like that you had something that you're like, oh, we could do this better.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
absolutely. I mean, and these are the moments where this is a process and a journey for everybody who goes through it. And you always have these moments of, wow, we should have done that in advance. We've
Mhm.
always done this, but a great learning experience and something that it's a gift that's going to keep on giving.
And to also remember that different places have different situations. So you were thinking, oh, when we were living on the mountain, this is what we needed to do. He was in a situation where nobody ever expected you were going to have, I mean, I heard they got something like 6 trillion gallons of water in that area.
Yeah, it was more than double what they had anticipated hitting the
Yeah.
mountain. This just everything was flooding. The buildings were flooding on the campus. So that's why he's still here with us. They are shut down until we get word that they're not shut down. So classes will begin online, but
Mm,
this was really a catastrophic event for that area.
sure. So Devon, having a mindset where you knew about preparedness and you came into college with supplies and a mindset that at least allowed you to not panic and to stop and assess. Were you able to help any of your neighbors? I know you were in an off-campus apartment, but any of your neighbors or college friends, were you able to help them as well in a situation like this?
Yeah, I was able to help one of my neighbors. He's actually trained in disaster
Oh.
relief, and so we both kept walking around my building, going through other people's units and being able, just making sure they're all okay. And whenever I was able to access internet, I checked in with a lot of my friends, classmates, and all those folks, and some of them did the same thing. And so we just asked, are you doing okay? And so yeah, it was really wonderful.
And I'm sure they appreciated, because sometimes when you're in an emergency situation, it's hard enough to keep it together. But then if everybody around you is kind of losing their cool, that makes it easier to lose your cool. So I'm sure they appreciated having you come and go, hey, are you okay? Do you have water? Or do you have these things? Are you able to communicate with, loved ones or whatever? But just to provide sort of a very calm viewpoint. And it must have been really nice for you to have a neighbor who was very familiar with emergency preparedness, disaster relief, because then the two of you kind of became a front team for everybody else.
Absolutely.
So, Devon, one of the things that must have been a consideration to plan for in your emergency prep going away to college thing is you have a particular health condition. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I have celiac disease, which is basically an autoimmune disorder. So no gluten, no grains, nothing like that.
And one of the problems is a lot of emergency preparedness foods, like I call it the big bucket of don't eat that. There's an emergency after it's over, a few weeks later, pallets of these big buckets come out that claim to have, 135 meals or whatever. And most of it is things like pasta or, the grains and things like that, because it's cheap filler,
Yeah,
which first of all is
absolutely.
for anybody, especially with all the preservatives and other negative ingredients that they put in there. But for you, that's actually toxic.
Yeah,
Absolutely. There's
absolutely.
no way they'd find him curled up in a ball sick. So that's one of the reasons that we make sure that he's got high quality foods on hand that are ready to pack
Mhm.
always.
Yeah, and so that becomes an important thing to keep in mind for anybody who's doing preparedness, is to think about what are your health issues. And it doesn't have to be celiac disease. It can be, maybe somebody who can't do oxalates, or somebody who has diabetes or some other health condition that requires them to eat a specific way. It's really important to plan ahead and make sure, because you also, I mean, let's face it, you're in college, you're a growing young man, so you eat a lot of calories anyway. You want to make
Yeah.
you want to make sure
Absolutely.
you have enough calories, and then they have to be the right calories for foods that are not going to make you sick and provide good, nourishing supplies.
Absolutely. And we also make sure that he takes extra with him just in case he needs to share.
Oh,
So
really nice.
yeah, we watch very carefully. So even if it's just sharing an apple or a packet of tuna or a can of sardines, which I'm sure most college students don't want to eat, but any port in a storm, right?
Well, and the other thing is, I love that a lot of your focus is on protein, because we need to make sure that we've got enough protein to keep our energy and our body, functioning well in an emergency situation. So that's a really good plan as well. It's not all just about comfort food or cheap carby foods either.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. You got to choose what you carry and you just do the best you can.
no, that was great. So thank you. We'll add that in. And then if you want a copy of this after it's edited, I'm happy to share that with you.
You
You
want to
don't
see
have
that?
to, but I'm just saying, if you wanted to just see it. I mean, here's the thing. You did really well. You have a very calm demeanor, and you speak well. You have a very pleasing tone to your voice, which is really nice. I think Toastmasters would help you feel more comfortable with what you're doing. And it would also help you be able to transition through topics when the conversation is shifting or whatever, just because they work on that a lot. But it's a lot of fun. It's not very expensive, and it's a great way to learn public speaking. And it sounds like the career that you're going into, you may have to do a fair amount of that.
Yes, he will. Yes, he will. So we will pay for that for your Christmas present.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Hanukkah present. Okay, Hanukkah
Well,
present. And then
I will say my time in Toastmasters was a lot of fun. My proudest moment was when I won a tall tales competition, which is where you have to tell a story and they have to decide if you're lying or not. And I was lying and nobody knew.
that, Mira.
Well, it was
I
just
can see.
fun,
Well,
you.
of course, of
And then
course.
the one class that I didn't take that I may go back and take it, although time is always an issue. They have so many books. You buy the book. So you start with the first book and then you choose what books you want to learn about different topics or how to present different things. I wanted to take the class on how to be funnier when you're talking, because I talk so much about serious things that it would be great to feel, without having to work very hard at it, to learn how to infuse a little more humor into my topics.
But you are funny when you
Oh,
speak.
thank you. I
No,
appreciate
you
you. I work
are.
really hard at it.
It doesn't sound, the thing, Mira, is it never sounds like you're working hard.
Oh,
Every time you present, and you've only gotten better over the years.
thank you. I appreciate it.
It's true. It's true. And you are funny. You do make people laugh.
I
You don't
try.
hear it because you're up there.
Yeah,
It's,
maybe that's it. Yeah.
and that's what it is. You do. You absolutely do. I laugh
Well, thank you.
with you, not at you.
Right. Oh, well, hopefully, yes. Thank you very much for that. Well,
Oh my
thank you
goodness. Well, listen,
so
thank
much
you
for this.
so
Yeah,
much.
Yeah,
it's
thank
great.
you.
Appreciate it. And I appreciate you guys, and stay safe. I hope you get to go back to campus soon. I mean, online school is not the end of the world.
Yeah.
It's more fun to be in class with your friends and doing all that, but you'll
Yeah,
definitely.
that's what he misses. So they're going to be online for a while. The building that he's in was really destroyed.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it got flooded and all the electrical and HVAC systems were damaged. And so they had to go in and repair all that.
The labs, the GIS labs were
Yeah,
damaged.
biology as well.
Wow.
So it looked like the vomiting emoji. They had the doors open and the water was just flooding from the inside out.
Wow.
And,
That's
areas of the roads were just gone.
mm,
Walkways were gone. So they've got a
wow.
lot of it cordoned
And
off.
then tied in with, like you said, the grocery stores were empty or they were flooded or they were damaged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's no reason for him to go back. He can't get fresh food right now. So, without a school building, without internet, without cellular service, there's no reason. So he'll
Right,
stay here for a while
right.
until they say the coast is clear. I think also if the students stay away and let them get the work done, the
It might get,
construction work, it'll make it go faster.
Yeah.
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 And you also, their focus is the school, but the community also has to rebuild.
The
Yeah.
school is actually helping the community and started that first day by opening up the safe buildings on campus and feeding the people in the town.
Yeah. Hot meals.
Giving them hot meals, making sure they could take showers with the water. They've got a separate water system. So, they do a lot for the community, and the
Yeah.
community does a lot for the school.
Yeah.
And that's great. And that's part of preparedness too, is having that community plan, being able to come together and support each other. And
Yeah.
and I think also one of the nice things, it sounds like the school and the community have a really good bond. So when the students do come back, the grocery stores are restocked, the power's back
Yeah.
on, all of that. It's just going to make that connection deeper between the community and the school, because they were able to support each other in the aftermath of this really.
Yeah.
And so I guess the one last question that I have for you is, out of all the supplies that you had and all the things that you had together, do you also have a go bag in case you needed to leave? And I mean, hopefully it'll never
Yep.
happen again.
I had a duffel bag that I brought with me. So a lot of clothing, toiletries, and all that stuff.
So we had also his supplements are all in one area. So they were ready to be put in that duffel bag. He had an emergency first aid kit, small. What else did we have? We had water wipes. So just just so we can stay a little bit fresher because they did have a water alert go up into effect. So the water system just failed with the amount of rain and the breaks in the
Sure.
pipes. So
As
he
it,
wasn't comfortable using it. And I said, don't waste your water for bathing, just, sponge bath.
right. No, and that's great. So I'm glad you're okay. I'm glad your friends and neighbors are okay. And I'm really glad that you knew what to do and how to help people. So
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, folks, thanks for watching this. And please remember, as part of your membership, you have access to all of the weather preparedness videos and the other preparedness modules. If you either have not watched something for a while or have not watched a section of the class, I encourage you to go back and watch all of them, print out your workbooks, and move forward from there. Let me know if you have any questions. You can tag me in comments. Thanks so much. Bye, friends.